on a deep level is that so-and-so is not experiencing and cannot experience his deep, cohesive structures. He is fragmented. Various parts of his personality are split off from each other and leading fairly independent and often chaotic lives. A man who cannot get it together is a man who has probably not had the opportunity to undergo ritual initiation into the deep structures of manhood. He remains a boy, not because he wants to, but because no one has shown him the way to transform his boy energies into man energies. No one has led him into the direct healing experience of the inner world of the masculine potentials. When we visit the caves of our distant Cro-Magnon ancestors in France and descend into the dark, otherworldly and innerworldly sanctuaries and light our lamps, we jump back in startled awe and wonder at the mysterious hidden well springs of masculine might we see depicted there. We feel something deep move within us. Hear in silent song the magic animals, bison, antelope, and mammoth, leap in thunder in the pristine beauty and force across the high, vaulted ceilings, the undulating walls, moving purposefully into the shadows, the folds of the rocks, then springing at us again in the light of our lamps. And here painted with them are the handprints of men, of the artist hunters, the ancient warriors and providers, who met here and performed their primeval rituals. Anthropologists almost universally agree these cave sanctuaries were created, in part at least, by men, for men, and specifically for the ritual initiation of boys into the mysterious world of the male responsibility and masculine spirituality. But ritual process for making of men out of boys is not limited to our conjectures about these ancient caves, as many scholars have shown, most notable among them Messira, Aladad, and Victor Turner. Ritual initiation process still survives in tribal cultures to this day in Africa, South America, islands in the South Pacific, and many other places. It has survived until very recent times among the Plains Indians of North America. The study of the ritual process, my specialists may tend towards dry reading, but when we see it enacted colorfully in a number of contemporary movies are like ancient folk tales and myths. There are stories we tell ourselves, about our lives and their meaning. In fact, initiatory process for both men and women, one of the great hidden themes of many of our movies. A good explicit example can be found in the movie The Emerald Forest. Here, a white boy has been captured and raised by Brazilian Indians. One day he's playing in the river with a beautiful girl. The chief has noticed his interest in the girl for some time. This awakening of sexual interest in the boy is a signal to the wise chief. He appears on the riverbank with his wife and some of the tribal elders and surprises Tommy at play with the girl. The chief booms out, "Tommy, your time has come to die." Everyone seems profoundly shaken. The chief's wife, playing the part of the woman of all mothers, asks, "Must he die?" The chief threateningly replies, "Yes." Then we see a firelit nightmare scene in which Tommy is seemingly tortured by the older men in the tribe and forced into the vines. He is to be eaten alive by jungle ants. He writhes in agony, his body mutilated in the jaws of the hungry ants. We fear for the worst. Finally, the sun comes up, though, and Tommy, still breathing, is taken down to the river by the men and bathed, the clinging ants washed from his body. spiritual experience, induced by drugs blown through a long pipe into his nose. He hallucinates, and in his hallucinations discovered his animal soul, an eagle, and soars above the world in new and expanded consciousness, seen as it was from God's eye view, the totality of his jungle world. Then he is allowed to marry. Tommy is a man, and as he takes on a man's responsibilities and identity, he is moved first into the position of the brave in the tribe and into the position of the chief. It can be said that life's perhaps most fundamental dynamic is to attempt to move from a lower form of experience and consciousness to a higher, deeper level of consciousness, from a diffuse identity to a more consolidated and structured identity. All of human life at least attempts to move forward along these lines. We seek initiation into adulthood, into adult responsibilities and duties towards ourselves and others, into adult joys and adult rights, into adult spirituality. Tribal societies had highly specific notions about adulthood, both masculine and feminine. This is how to get to it, and they had ritual processes like the one in the Emerald Forest to enable their children to achieve what we would call calm, secure maturity. Our own culture has pseudo-rituals instead. There are many pseudo-initiations for men in our culture. Conscription into the military is one. The fantasy and the humiliation and forced non-identity of boot camp will make a man out of you. The gangs of our major cities are another manifestation of pseudo-initiation, and so are our prison systems, which in large measure are run by gangs. We call these phenomena pseudo-events for two reasons. For one thing, with the possibility of the exception of military initiation, the process, though sometimes highly ritualized, especially within city gangs, more often than not initiate the boy in some kind of masculinity that is skewed, stunted, and false. It is in this patriarchal manhood, one that is abusive of others and often of self. Sometimes a ritual murder is required of the would-be initiate. Usually the abuse of drugs is involved in the gang culture. The boy may become an acting-out adolescent in these systems and achieve a level of development roughly parallel to the level expressed by the society as a whole in which its boyish values, though in a contra-culture form. But these pseudo-initiations will not produce men, because real men are not wantonly violent or hostile. Boy psychology, which we'll look at in more detail in Chapter 3, is charged with the struggle of dominance of others in some form or another. It is often caught up in the wounding of self as well as others. It is sadomasochistic. Man's psychology is always the opposite. It is nurturing and generative, not wounding and destructive. In order for man's psychology to come into being for any particular man, there needs to be a death. Death is symbolic, psychological, or spiritual, is always a vital part of the initiatory ritual. In psychological terms, the boy ego must die. The old ways of being and doing and thinking and feeling must ritually die before the new man can emerge. Pseudo-initiation, though placing some curbs on the boy ego, often amplifies the ego's striving for power and control in a new form. An adolescent from regulated by other adolescents. Effective transformative initiation absolutely slays the ego and its desires in the old form to resurrect it with a new subordinate relationship to a center. Submission to the power of the mature masculine energies always brings forth a new masculine personality that is marked by calm, compassion, clarity of vision, and generativity. A second factor makes most initiations in our culture pseudo-initiations. In most cases, there simply is not a contained ritual process. Ritual processes is contained by two things. The first is a sacred space, and the second is a ritual elder, a wise old man or a wise old woman who is completely trustworthy for the initiate and can lead the initiate through the process and deliver him or her intact and enhanced on the other side. Mircea Eliade researched the role of sacred space extensively. He concluded that the space that had been ritually hallowed is essential to the initiations of every kind. In tribal societies, this space can be a specially constructed hut or house in which the boys awaiting their initiation are held. It can be a cave or it can be a vast wilderness into which the would-be initiate is driven in order to die or to find his manhood. The sacred space can be the magic circle of magicians, or as in a more advanced civilization, it can be the inner room in the precincts of a great temple. This space must be sealed from the influence of the outside world, especially in the case of the boys, from the influence of women. Often the initiates are put through terrifying, emotional, and excruciatingly painful physical rituals. They learn to submit to the pain of life, the ritual elders, into the masculine traditions and myths of society. They are taught all the secrets and wisdom of men, and they are released from the sacred space only when they have successfully completed the ordeal that has been reborn as men. The second essential ingredient for a successful initiatory process is the presence of a ritual elder. In the Emerald Forest, this is the chief and the other elders of the tribe. The ritual elder is a man who knows the secret wisdom and who knows the ways of the tribe, the closely guarded men's myths. He is the one who lives out a vision of mature masculinity. With the scarcity in our culture of mature men, it goes without saying that ritual elders are in desperately short supply. Thus, the pseudo-initiations remain skewed towards the reinforcement of boy psychology rather than allowing forward movement of man psychology. Even if some sort of ritual process exists, and even if it is kind of a sacred space that has been set up on the city streets or on the cell block, the crisis in the mature masculinity is very much upon us, lacking adequate models of mature men and lacking societal cohesion and instructional structures for actualizing ritual processes. It's every man for himself, and most of us fall by the wayside with no idea what it is, what it was that the goal of our gender drive, or what went wrong with our strivings. We just know we are anxious, on the verge of feeling impotent, helpless, frustrated, put down, unloved, and unappreciated, often ashamed of being masculine. We just know that our creativity was attacked, that our initiative was met with hostility, that we were ignored, belittled, and left holding the empty bags of our lost self-esteem. We gave in to the dog-eat-dog world, trying to keep our work, our relationships afloat, losing energy, or missing the mark. Many of us seek the generative, affirming, and empowering father, though most of us don't know it. The father who, for most of us, never existed in our actual lives and won't appear no matter how hard we try to make him appear. However, as students of human mythology and as Jungians, we believe there is good news. It's this good news for men as well as women that we want to share. And it is to this